Gyi, if you were famous, what do you want to be famous for?
I would like to be famous for being kind.
For being kind. That's so... I want to give you a hug. All right, let me give you another one. If we could go anywhere you wanted on vacation, specifically we, that's me and you, where would you choose and why?
Well, man, I got to tell you, this one hits close to home because you so generously invited me to go whitewater rafting with you, and in which you are going, I believe, while we're recording this. And man, I feel like I'm missing out. So that's what I would like to do, is go whitewater rafting with you. Thanks again for the invite.
That would be cool. That would be great. Okay, these questions are brought to you by something I found unintentionally on Amazon. This is Talking Point Cards, the family edition. They have lots of different editions, but what I have found, I bought these thinking that I would be able to get my kids beyond the recital of what they saw on the internet today, conversation at dinner, and actually having deep conversations. I was kind of expecting the eye roll, but my kids love it. I've got 12, 16, and 17 at home, and they love these things. So to bring a little happy to your life, I would strongly recommend the Talking Point cards. You can get them on Amazon. They're like $20. And boy, oh boy, has it changed the conversations that we have had at the dinner table. So a little happy, a little fun, family-friendly advice brought to you by Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.
Love it. Take my money. Get those cards. Conrad, I have a question for you. Close your eyes and imagine that you were going to record a legal marketing podcast today. What would you be talking about?
Well, we got to start with the news, Gyi, as we always do. After we hit the news, we're going to go 2 different segments on questions. We're going to do facts and racks. Segment 1, we're going to ask and answer the frequently asked questions that Gyi and I get all the time. And section number 2, a little bit more insightful, we're going to ask the questions that we never get asked but should be asked. When we come back, the news.
Music.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
All right, Gyi, in the news, it's almost like the people at Mountain View have been listening to our show and are very concerned about the volume of fake reviews. Google recently sued a company for leaving lots of fake reviews and fake GMB profiles. This was not in the legal industry, but it was a step by Google to kind of crack down on the reviews. Do you see this going bigger? Like, why did they pick out one company? This seems like a very strange approach, an expensive approach for Google to take in terms of combating fake reviews. What do you think?
Well, I love the concept. I love the idea of let's do a shock and awe campaign. We talked about this before. Part of the solution here is scaring people out of doing this stuff, and getting sued by Google can be scary. But, and I don't know all the details, maybe you can fill in some of the details. When I parsed some of this story, I was like, who did they sue?
Yeah.
I mean, I could name probably a dozen or 2 dozen really bad fake review companies that are like just pouring out reviews. Now, again, I'm very focused on legal, so I don't, maybe the scale of this is different somewhere else, but like, it seems like they kind of picked on somebody out of nowhere, but like, am I holding my breath to see if this totally shakes up the review game? No, I am not.
Okay.
But and I'm very reluctant to cheer for Google on anything. On this one, I'm cheering for them. To be honest with you, I didn't even read the basis of the lawsuits. I don't know any of the details of the claim. But if it does something to slow down the onslaught of fake reviews, I'm all for it.
All right. But yet you are very, very cynical that that's going to have the impact.
Yeah, and every
described.
litigation, here's a short answer. Let's say they win. Maybe it scares a couple of companies. You know what else happens? This same company starts right back up under a different name.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's more like
they're gonna be like,
we're
we're bankrupt. We can't pay this. We can't pay the judgment, whatever it is. Maybe they're trying to get an injunction or something. But I don't know if these people are on U.S. soil, but depending on what country they're in, I don't know. I'm cynical. It's going to have that much of an impact, but I like the effort. I do like the effort. Now, here's my thing though. Hey, Google, there are plenty of smart people in review world who have tons of great suggestions for actually combating fake reviews without taking people to court. So why don't you pay them instead of your lawyers to sue people?
All right. The next piece of the news, we occasionally cover venture capital because it's an indicator of what's hot. And Even Up raises $50.5 million in their Series B. Even Up is at the risk of throwing lots of three-letter acronyms, TLAs, at you. Actually, these are two-letter acronyms, AI and PI. So there is a PI legal assistant built on AI, brought to you by Even Up. The interesting thing for me, this is Series B. They are at a $325 million valuation. Someone is seeing lots of promise in this. So we'll see what happens. But congrats to your friends at Even Up. If you would like to sponsor a podcast, boy, oh boy, do I have someone for you to talk to. All right.
Do you know what it does? Do you know what Even Up does?
Yeah. Do you want me to read this? I'll read the very quick piece of this. Our AI demands product analyzes medical records and generates demand letters.
Oh, boy.
All right. So Even Up, you no longer want to sponsor this podcast. That's just fine. Move along.
Next news item.
Wow. We just made we need the sad trombone with your oh boy coming in there. So Universal Analytics, we have brought this to you maybe 10 times. We're bringing it to you the 11th time. Gyi, what is the sunset date for Universal Analytics from Google?
July 1st.
July 1st. So by the time you're listening to this, it's too late. You are either on top of it or your agency sucks. We warned you.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what we're talking about right now, you have a problem.
If you're wondering what we're talking about right now, you've never listened to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. So welcome. And please subscribe.
please leave us a review after we've insulted you.
Most importantly, go research this issue because your website analytics data is about to stop working, and you're gonna stop tracking everything that's going on your website. Surprise! Please
leave us a review at your favorite review place. All right. When we come back, we are going to open up with some facts. All right, Gyi, it's time for some FAQs.
FAQs?
Yeah, fuck you, Gyi.
Watch your mouth, Conrad.
This is not a family podcast. The only people who are family who listen to this podcast are my kids. I force them to listen to it in the car, and they always ask to change to the radio. All right, we're talking about
fuck you.
Frequently asked questions. So we are going a FAQ. That is the French.
Why don't you just say
frequently
FAQ?
Asked questions. FAQ sounds just more like we're going to get the explicit. We haven't got the explicit tag yet. We'll see if we can push it with an acronym that doesn't sound very nice. Okay, moving on from what sounds like my previous dinner table conversations on occasion. We're going to ask some of the most frequently asked questions that Gyi and I get from prospects and lawyers alike. Starting with Gyi, what would you like? What do you hear the most? And is it a good question?
I don't know if it's the most, but I hear it all the time. It's a terrible question.
Ha!
How do I rank number one for every keyword? Everybody's favorite question. We're SEO people. They want to know how to rank for all these keywords. And, I can show you all sorts of keywords you can rank for. You're probably ranking for keywords you don't even realize. Yeah, stand in your lobby. Search for
your
personal
brand.
Injury lawyer. Yeah, search for your brand. Then search for personal injury lawyer. Then go click on your listing and then search again.
Winner, winner. Man, you're so good at this stuff. That's all you have to do, Gyi, to be successful in SEO, to dominate the local SEO market?
Well, the other one I always think about is one time, I probably told this story on the show before, but this firm posted stuff about the Detroit Lions, and they got crazy traffic for Detroit Lions stuff. Totally irrelevant. They ranked number 1. They were in Search Console impressions and clicks, average position 1 for Detroit Lions. Unfortunately, they don't sell Detroit Lions gear. So ranking number 1 didn't do any, or tickets, or what else could you sell if you want to rank for Detroit Lions?
Tears.
What are you talking about, man? They're going to win the NFC North this year. Uh-oh. I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. It's interesting you say this. I literally just posted a blog post on this where, we have this very simplistic perspective, or I think a lot of people have this very simplistic perspective that more traffic means more contacts. And one of the things, this is a really, really specific client of ours. They have a ton of traffic. They've never converted very well. Their entire strategy is very high up in the funnel. Recent Google algorithm update has actually improved their traffic, and we've really worked on growing their traffic. We've actually seen not just their conversion rate drop, which means they're getting they're actually dropping their absolute value of conversion. So they're getting less conversions with more traffic because they're getting more traffic about stuff that is not relevant to actually hiring a lawyer. So it's been interesting. Don't assume that your traffic is gonna turn into calls.
Yeah, and this is another point and we'll talk about this for some other questions, but like this is why traffic is not a good question to be asking about at all or reporting on and all that kind of stuff either. Like who cares? Oh yeah, you got 10 million visits from somewhere, some former Soviet country, and you practice family divorce law in South Carolina. Nice job.
Good job. Doesn't matter.
Pat each other on the backs. All right, what's your favorite or one of your top FAQ ways?
I mean, this happens quite a lot. And it's really around content strategy. How much content should we be posting? And on the vendor side, like how many blog posts a week do I get? I still get that question on the regular.
We had a client fire us because they didn't think they were getting enough blog posts a week. We were like, and we're trying to do the things that we do, cost per acquisition, no, we should have, qualified consultations, target cost per acquisition. They're like, we don't care if this feels like
we want more.
You're not getting us enough stuff. We need more. And this is the thing. We talk about this all the time, but like the deliverables are tangible, right? Posts are tangible.
People like posts.
People love posts. Content's tangible. Anyway, so again, we get that question a lot too, and terrible metric. I mean, we can sell you how many blog posts you want. Give you an infinite number. Chat GPT, right?
Thank you, AI. Yeah, I mean, so the flip side is my take on content strategy is most of you still are living in this fallacy of the long tail. It's not that it's not a thing, but most of you believe that you just need to throw more crap on the web and that will make you money, and it doesn't.
I was going to say, careful there, because I was going to say you can actually do really well in the long tail, but it's not a matter of more posts.
Yeah, 100%, right? Okay. And so, but there's this thought that we just need to vomit more stuff out there.
Right.
Most of you have never gone back and looked at how your content is performing. I think we've talked about this in the past. There's probably some old pods that we can link to, but most of you are not going back to see which of your content is actually driving traffic or driving consults or at least phone calls, right? Most of you aren't doing that. Most of you aren't going back and looking at why do you still have the 1997 post about I won the Super Lawyers Award for someone who no longer works at the firm, right? Most of you don't do that. So there's no legacy content analysis. There's no current new content analysis, and you just start vomiting content out onto the web and no one cares. So do you, Gyi, actually, this is a question on this specifically. Do you have a page count kind of guideline where you're like, I bet they look like someone who might have too much content?
Not really, because it's more about like what's on the pages. So if you look at if you look at page count and a function of average length of page, I think you see more stuff because there are big sites that have lots of pages.
Sure.
that might be, it's not, I don't know what the raw page count number is, but, and you've talked about this before, so I'm stealing from you, but I think a lot of SEOs do this. You want to look
from me?
at things.
I appreciate. That's
you should
flattering.
look at page number in the context of number of pages indexed and number of pages generating traffic, right? So if you've got a lot of pages that no one's visiting, or you get a lot of pages that are getting, maybe they're even getting crawled, but Google's like, we're not even indexing this crap.
Yes.
That's when you have a problem.
This was an early thing I learned as an SEO is to look at these ratios. You have your page count, your crawl count, right, which aren't always the same thing, and then you have your index count, which rarely are the same thing, and then you have those pages that are actually generating traffic, and then those pages that are actually converting, right? And then
that's the next one. That's
beautiful. And then on top of converting in the GA sense is form, fill, phone call, text, or chat, right? It's just an inquiry. It could be garbage, and then ideally you have on top of that, did they have a consultation, right? That is a beautiful, beautiful way to look at your overall content strategy. And my gut is most of you don't. My answer to that is when I see pages sites that click over the 700 or 800 page count level, almost always you have a bunch of crap on your site that no one cares about and that has not been seen for a long time. It's not always the case, but almost always it is the case. And the only way to have a really big page count site that is going to get crawled, indexed, and served is to have a really strong backlink profile. No one really thinks about the correlation between those two things, but you will not have a large index count with a small site, with a weak backlink profile. You just can't. No matter how much you throw up on the web, it doesn't matter. All right. Next question. I throw it to you, Mr. Tsakalakis.
This is one that's been floating. I mean, it's a classic SEO question, but I've seen it rearing its head around my feeds at least recently. How long is this going to take?
Ha! Okay.
How long is what going to take? First of all, how long? The classic SEO is how long is it? Usually, it's like how long is it going to take for me to rank for something? Going back to question one, but let's be generous to the questioner and say, how long is it going to take to actually get a return on investment, or how long is it going to take to maybe start seeing lead flow. I don't know, qualified consultation flow, stuff like that. And, what's the answer to that question, by the way, Conrad?
Can I say it depends without getting the buzz collar?
That's the correct answer. That's the correct. Thank you. This is why we do the show together. We didn't even prepare that, but that's the right answer. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you there's an easy example of why. Scenario one, you have a no index on your site. You're not in the index. We flip a switch, you're going to start getting traffic. I don't know if you're going to get return on investment tomorrow, but once Google recrawls indexes and assuming your site has anything quality on it, you're going to start generating traffic. That's overnight. It's very rare
that seems like
happens.
A crazy extreme example, but this also happened. I'm sure you did this for people with lack of category in GMB, right?
Yeah.
Or GBP now, right? So, you don't have a category in Google Business Profile. Let's do that during this consult, and I'll show you how to do it during this consult. And like tomorrow, it's like, oh my gosh, I exist. Right?
Yeah.
So
or there's a go ahead.
These quick fixes are out there. You and I talked about this a few pods ago. There are quick fixes where you can have that really big return on investment. It's usually because someone effed something up somewhere.
Exactly. The meta information's all wrong. Your pages are optimized for home. You've got all sorts of crazy parameters in your URL structure. All sorts of technical things can show a lot of results fast.
Yep.
On the other hand, you're brand new website. You've never been online before. You just graduated law school. You just started your own firm. Yeah. For non-brand competitive practice areas and competitive cities, SEO is going to be a long-term play to get to return on investment or target a number of consultations that can support your business. And so again, you go back to media mix and channel diversification and all that kind of stuff. But there is no, and these people, you see these ads, right? Well, SEO shouldn't take long.
Oh,
Look
Jesus.
at us. Here's a chart of 0 to 10,000 visitors overnight.
4 easy steps to dominate your SEO market.
Yeah. So that's all you can just ignore all that stuff. It's going to depend. And so I'll tell you, if you talk to somebody who actually knows what they're doing, they're going to say it's going to depend. And then they might say, I'll give you a better answer after we do some research, right? Because if they crawl your site, they look at your competitive landscape, they look at some of the technical issues going on your site, they might be able to give you a better assessment. And a lot of people, again, because we know that the market wants an answer to this. So, we'll say things like, based on executing certain plans, call it 6 to 8 months, 10 to 12 months, depending on a variety of factors. But, even that is still somewhat arbitrary. And we're guilty of it too. We try, but people want an answer. When is this going to happen? It's like, well, I don't want to set your expectations about this, but, and check. And that's another thing. Another good question is how frequently we're going to check in on the performance of this thing, which again, we'll get talked about when we get to our next section, I think.
I have a kind of rejoinder to the how long is this going to take?
Rejoinder.
And I do think this is a better way to frame that question in the mind of a law firm. And the question is, the rejoinder, how long are you in it for? Right? Ask yourself that question. If you need business wins, if you need clients in the short term and you're really only looking in the short term, this is not the right channel to be thinking about. If you're in this for growth over the long term, it's a great channel, right? And but that's the real answer, right? Like if you're really only looking 12 months out, and I don't even mean that in a negative way. Some of you are like, yeah, we need more cases right now. We just hired a lawyer. Like there are definitely reasons, or like we have cash flow issues, right? There are definitely reasons why you should only be looking 12 months out. But if you are not looking 12 months out, if you're in it for the long term, if you're in it for growth, for the long term, then let's talk. But if you really need that proof of concept in the next 6 to 12 months, like maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But it's the wrong channel to be playing in if you need the quick win.
And I will say this, I'm going to give you one, I don't know if this is a rejoinder or not, but one other, because I can hear people now being like, well, what about, and yes, if you can identify a very specific niche that's not competitive, start a brand new site, you're publishing there, but you're talking about, that's like the 5%,
it's
90.
Yeah. Like
go ahead.
A really competitive niche that hasn't been pushed by lawyers on the web yet.
Yeah, but there's emerging stuff. I mean, look at this AI stuff. There's all sorts of emerging stuff going on. Technology. Again, we're talking, like I said, 5%. If you're a local family lawyer, local PI lawyer, local bankruptcy lawyer, we're not talking to you. I'm just saying that that's another. There is. That's the amazing thing about search, because 15% of the searches are brand new every day. There's a lot of still blue ocean on the web that people aren't tapping into because everybody wants to rank for Chicago personal injury lawyer, and that's where they spend all their money.
All right.
What do you do with that?
When we come back, we're going to get into the racks, the questions that we think you should be asking and are ignoring when you're talking about marketing. But first, a quick ad break. So I spent last week in Houston at the Lanier Trial Academy, and boy, oh boy, was that a lonely place to be a vendor sitting in front of a booth. The content there was unbelievably amazing, and Lanier carried the entire show for 3 days. I mean, it was about presentation, but he carried that for 3 days straight, and it was amazing. I really enjoyed listening in on that. One of the people who did stop by was Josh Rorscheid, who stopped by and said, I love the show. I look forward to it coming out every single Wednesday. So thank you for stopping by and saying hello. And it was nice to see you. And keep up. By the way, Josh, if you would like, you can feel free to leave that review online. We'd appreciate that as well. Okay. We talked about FAQs. Now we're going to talk about racks. Questions that we wish you would ask that we never hear. Gyi, hit me up. What is a question you wish you were asked because it would indicate that lawyers are thinking critically about what they're doing?
Well, there's others I'm going to combine two here. Do I have access to my ads account? But I'm really going to go with, do I own my ads account and my content management system and all the other advertising accounts, or am I renting it, licensing it from you? Why is that? Do you think that's an important question, Conrad?
I do think it's an important question. I mean, we have just beaten to death some of the vendors who've gone out of their way, contorted themselves contractually, technologically, in ways to put the control into their hands instead of their clients. And this is a disgusting MBA approach to doing business where we have the power instead of the client. And it's really about control. And I am a strong believer that if I ran a law firm, I would want to control all of the things that related to my marketing, which would include access and ownership and admin access to, I mean, let's list them off. All of your social media, all of your advertising campaigns, your website's back end, right? You want to be able to be quick in firing and getting rid of crappy vendors. And moving on.
Bottom line is your agreement should say you own everything that your vendor touches. It's all the accounts, all the data, everything that you do. That's just the way it has to be. I mean, and the reason here are the horror stories, right? Held hostage with Google business profiles, held hostage with websites, held hostage. And the other thing too is we kind of alluded to this, but there is so much value in the ad account itself, like the historical performance of the ad account. Not everybody pays the same thing per click. A lot of people don't realize that. And if you're just renting that from somebody else, like you're giving them all the value. Now, the counterpoint that the vendor might say is, well, yeah, look, that's because we're giving them at a reduced fee. Like we're not charging them a lot to rent. So they have an opportunity. They have access to this thing that they might not otherwise have. And that might be right for some firms, maybe. I don't know. But if you're like back to Conrad's point, you're in this for the long haul. Most of the firms that we talk to that are really making big investments into their digital presence, in my opinion, you'd be crazy to let these agencies dictate those terms to you.
And I'll push back on your nicety there. You're getting this at a reduced fee because we have this proprietary thing, and boy, are you lucky. Right. You can't even look at it to know what they're spending. You have no idea, right? So you're spending with a blindfold on, and that is there. We probably don't need to say this enough. There's enough shenanigans going on in the digital agency world that I would not trust anyone who didn't let me see where my money was being spent, right? Like, I just wouldn't. And there's a reason that you can't see that, right? Is where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
All right. What else? What other questions, Gyi, do you wish we were asked that we never hear?
Well, this is when we kind of get asked it in some ways, but it's like it's being asked the wrong way. But like every single time you talk to any agency or you talk to someone, whether you're going to hire a marketing person as a consultant, and really vendors in other contexts too, is like, what does success look like? Let's define success. What does winning look like? Because if you don't do that, everything else is what I call the cab to nowhere. You hop in, you're paying them some money, but you don't know where you're going.
Okay. So what's the right answer for what success looks like?
Well, it varies from firm to what you need, right? Different firms have different, you talk about this a lot too. Follow-up question is like, where do you want to go a year from now, right? Where do you want to be? Right. What's most important to you? What gaps do you have? Do you have a team of people who can execute and you need strategic consulting to try to do some kind of like incremental gain in market position? Or are you brand new to this thing and do we need to benchmark metrics in the first 90 days to even get off the ground? But having conversations about like that's the only way you're going to walk away or enter into a relationship or walk away from a relationship at the end and say, I feel like we either achieved our objectives or we didn't. Right. Is that, it sounds silly. Well, you got to have objectives in order to measure against them, right? But so many times we see that there are no objectives to measure.
I'll bring this up, and it's a little recent, and it was a little stingy, but I'll bring it up for those of you who are sitting there, because I have had this conversation. Like, I'm not telling you what my business objectives are. You need to tell me what you're going to do. If you have that attitude, we recently walked away from a prospect where we were just at loggerheads. He wanted to know what we were going to do and how much it was going to cost, and we wanted to know where he wanted to go. If your mindset is such that you feel like that is revealing too much to tell a vendor where you want to go, when you're asking them to help you get there, you need to insource everything. If you just lack that trust, otherwise you're going to hire someone and you will always be disappointed.
I was going to say there's one asterisk or rejoinder or asterisk.
Rejoinder.
If you want stuff, you want time and materials at cost, then you should be holding your agency accountable for delivering time and materials at cost. So if you're going to be like, I want 5 blog posts a month, then you measure the success of the program by whether or not the agency delivers 5 blog posts a month. That's it. Don't start talking about performance and consultations and visibility and growth and conversion and target cost per consultation and return on investment. Just focus on what you wanted. You wanted 5 blog posts. You weren't going to share anything. Then get your 5 blog posts. Have a nice life.
In the unlikely event you did not gather Gyi's perspective on that, he thinks that is stupid, as do I. All right.
Well, what will happen is you'll do it for a while and then you'll be like, why again am I buying these 5 blog posts a month?
No, but you're seeing the 5 blog posts. You're like,
woohoo! That's what you wanted. We tried to ask what you really wanted.
260 blog posts a year, and nothing's happening. All right. I'll tell you the question that I don't know that I have ever been asked, despite the fact that you and I talk about this at least every other podcast, if not every single podcast. When it comes to SEO, there I gave away the answer in the question. When it comes to SEO, how much of your effort is focused on link building, and what do you do for link building? We have talked over and over and over again about links, and links being the hard thing to actually make happen. It's expensive. It is not linear. It is creative. You don't always win. It's hard. I don't think anyone has ever gotten into anything beyond a very surface level conversation with me about what we do when it comes to generating backlinks. And the reason this is so important has just become even more important. You guys have the technology, by and large, technology has been solved. Like, some of you have garbage websites, but that's your fault. Like, there's easy alternatives. Get on WordPress, get on well-coded WordPress. You solve the technology problems. Some of you had a content problem, right? Some of you don't have the content. Well, we've solved that with ChatGPT and Quillbot and all that stuff. Like, so don't tell us that like the content map is not something that is cost effectively solvable. Links, that's the remaining differentiator for SEO, right? And yet the level of inquiry that we get about link building is very, very superficial. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but that does surprise me that we haven't had those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that it's in the rare bucket. I think the reasons are obvious. One is like, unless you're a sophisticated SEO consumer, you might not even know that links are a thing, right? The question we just went to our frequent, and again, unless you disagree, again, most of the people we talk to I want to rank number 1 for everything. Like, that's what they're focused on. Not the why, not the how, just rank there. The more sophisticated ones, yes. And I guess I would, you had multiple questions in there, but I think the really key one is what's your approach to link building, right? Because how much link building you're doing, that's tough. It's going to vary, and like what part of your business is link building, what part of the program is going to link building. Just like everything else, you can get really good links, and you fell into a layup doing some like broken link building for like a municipal site, and you might be surprised about how easy it is to get a really local relevant link. On the other hand, you might do what you think is an amazing PR or online PR campaign. It doesn't pan out, for a variety of reasons. There's nothing wrong with what you did. It just didn't turn into links. And so I think it's a lot less about like the quantification of the link building, but definitely like
process.
What's your approach to link building? Do you have some examples of great link building campaigns you've done in the past? Really, really important. And again, my other follow-ups to the link building thing, relevance and locality, not page authority, domain authority, main publisher sites, in my humble opinion, for local businesses.
All right. Last question that I wish we got asked more frequently. I'm not sure if you hit this. Do you only work with lawyers? Is there value?
That's a great one.
Do you think there's value? I mean, this is genuine. I think there's two sides to this. Do you think there's value in hiring an agency that only works with lawyers? Like, noting that you only work with lawyers. And maybe we talk about the flip side.
Yeah. So I do think there's value in working with an agency that has a lot of experience with law firms. I think, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, experience with legal SERPs, experience with some of the nuances with legal in terms of Google business profiles and local optimization, experience with even if you're not an expert on rules of professional conduct, I think having a sense of what some of the loose rules are. And again, we talked about this too, and I agree with you that lawyers should be reviewing and approving everything people do on their behalf, but legal's a unique animal. Now, does that mean that all of your experiences in lawyers? I would say no. I think it's good to have some experience, or at least an agency who's collaborating or looking outside of examples in legal, because legal, if you just look at all the competition, it tends to be pretty stagnant. Legal is not known for its innovative marketing practices. And
Fair.
so that's kind of the other side of the coin. But definitely, I would say, and this is a question we should have been on our list. Do you have experience working with similarly situated law firms to mine? Do you have experience working with a PI? If you're a PI law firm in a major market, do you have experience working with a PI law firm in a major market?
Right.
That's what I think matters more than are all of your clients lawyers or not? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other experience that's really important in working in legal, this is unfortunate. Do you have experience working in an underhanded, dirty market? Because there's a lot of underhanded, dirty legal marketing digital marketing that's going on in legal. I think you need to understand that, and it's one of those things that you and I see it and we just recognize it because we live in it. I think if you worked in florists or puppies or something like that, you might not be exposed to the filth that lives in the legal marketing world.
Fair enough. All right. Unfortunately, our time today has come to an end. And you might be new here. If you are, welcome again to the LHLM community. Secondly, we would love you to follow us on your podcast player of choice so you never miss an episode. In fact, you can probably do it right now on whatever podcast thingamabapa-doohickey you're listening to right now. You can find LHLM on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Cast, you name it, we're there. And while you're at it, we'd love to hear from you, whether that's leaving us a rating or review or dropping us a question in one of the comment sections on our various social media identities. We do think it's so important to hear directly from you, answer your questions, and get you involved in our podcast creation process. And for those regular listeners, as always, thanks again. For this episode of Lunch Hour in Legal Marketing, Gyi and Conrad saying farewell.
Money makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go